Beyond the Numbers, the podcast, with Sobukola Coker from Trabalho Accountants and Business Advisors.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Numbers, our podcast where we talk all things business with Sobukola Coker from Trabalho Accountants and Business Advisors. Hello.
Morning, Chris. How are you today?
I'm great. It's good to see you again for our second episode of the podcast. We've had some great feedback from the first episode, and I think people have picked out certain details that they want us to go into a little more depth on. And the area that we're going to be talking about today is one of the kind of the crucial bedrocks of a good business, which is, of course, the business plan. It's so important, isn't it?
Yes, it is, the business plan. I am exceptionally excited that we are now in our second episode, so looking good. To be fair, doing a podcast was within our business plan when we first wrote it about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow! So it's all come full circle.
Yes,
and that was part of your vision. Do a podcast. Here it is. Definitely happened now. Episode 2.
Exactly.
So I think it's one of those things that a business plan is really handy to go back to and revisit. And sometimes you've had some brilliant ideas when you've started the business, and then as you get further into it, you've kind of forgotten some of that original vision, and it helps you kind of ground yourself and put things back on track.
Yes, it does. It is very important to get a business plan written down. And that is the point that we're trying to make in trying to help businesses come up with the business plan, write things down, come up with a strategy, and then as you go along, it is also important to be agile. So as you go along, you tweak some of the aspects of the business plan, and you try as much as possible to be able to put actions together that you're able to try to hit off and ensure that the business is going in the right direction and that you are monitoring as you go along.
It's kind of like a map for driving the car, because if you head off and you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up on the Isle of Wight or in Scotland or something, and that might not be your intended destination. So if people come to you and they say, I've got a great idea for a business, and you say, right, if you've got a business plan, they say, nope, done nothing at all, can you help me? This is what you would guide them through. So hopefully what we're going to do on the podcast today is go through that process in a way that whoever's listening can start the process of doing their own business plan. Or if you've already got one, sort of a checklist of making sure that everything is in there that needs to be.
That is the plan. It will be good to note that a business plan is not only for new businesses, it is also for established businesses. We can take it from the two aspects. If we're a new business and you came to us at Trabalho saying, I've got a great idea, I want to, open up a restaurant as an example. We would then say, okay, let's go through the business plan with you. Let us ask you a few questions. And in many instances, what we find is that you may not have looked through all of the individual or the different components that would be required to make your business a success.
Yeah, and I guess also if you're scaling up, that's another time where you might need to revisit your business plan or do a whole new one if everything's different. If you're launching in a different market, then a lot of the stuff that you would have put in the original business plan will need to be revised.
Businesses need to be agile. Many businesses, as you grow, you get to a point where you become a bit more developed. You may then, decide that you want to branch into a new area, expand a certain area that you're in, and it is always essential that the business plan with the senior management is reviewed, revisited, and then new targets, can be formed out of that, and you can start to establish that process. And with that, the key is you have some sort of a blueprint or a plan to follow, and you take it, a day at a time, making sure that you're able to just, meet the plans that you have. So,
yeah, I was going to ask, what form should a business plan take? Should it just be, a Word document that you just type out? Are there programs that you can get that kind of store the business plan digitally and maybe you can edit it and it's got spreadsheets built in and stuff, or is that overcomplicating things? It just needs to be a basic document.
Well, it depends on the size of your business. You could do, for relatively simple businesses, you could do a simple business plan. If you did a search on the internet, you'll probably find a range of templates out there that you can use. For more complex businesses, there are platforms. They are quite expensive though, that can be used to put a business plan together. There's a whole range of things. As we are all aware now, we're now in the age of AI. So there's also AI or one of the AI platforms can help you in building a business plan. However,
would you warn people? Would you advise people not to rely on AI to write their business plan?
So yes, I would. It is not necessarily the greatest way to go. The business plan is more than just a document. The document is one thing, but then the steps to ensuring that you can achieve is a separate thing. So let me talk through one of the if a brand new business came to Trabalho, saying that they wanted to put a business plan together, we will start with the basics.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you bringing to market, and what problems are you trying to solve? So
that's the big first question, isn't it? Like, what is your why? Why are you starting this business? What are you going to achieve?
Why are you coming to market?
Yeah.
What are you bringing that the consumer requires that is different from what is already there? So I think one of the easier areas to use, which I think would resonate with a lot of people, is starting up a restaurant.
Yeah.
Because we all love to eat, but I often have people come to me saying, well, I want to start a restaurant. I'm a great cook. I'm excellent in the kitchen and my food is the best. And we say, okay, fantastic. Okay, let's start with the basics.
Let's try the food first. That would be like, okay, before we can move on, I need to taste this. Yeah.
So let's go to the basics. Where are you looking to set up this restaurant of yours? Okay, so I'm looking to set it up in my local area.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What else do we have in your local area? Why do you want to set up a restaurant in your local area? And is the local area the best place to set up? This then brings a lot of food for thought for the entrepreneur or the restaurateur, in that, what currently exists within the market. Are there a whole range of Chinese, Turkish, Indian restaurants? Is it English cuisine that you're going to be bringing to the market? Is the area rife for it? And we need to look at all of those aspects of things. And then, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Is it that there's none of your cuisine at your price level that you want to bring into the market? Is it that there's no great food and you want to close that gap? Or is it that there's, it could be that there, a lot of tourist attractions within the area, but not enough restaurants or establishment to cater for all of the different tastes that are coming into the new area. So we first of all have to go into the basics of trying to establish what you're trying to do. Next, we then start to look through what is the solution that you're bringing to market. What exactly are you going to do?
The important bit is to be honest with yourself and not to try and make you happy, to answer the questions honestly to yourself. Have you found a gap in the market, and are you being strategic, or you just want to open a restaurant in your local area and there's one around the corner that's very similar, but you just really want to do this? That's not a reason to start a business.
That isn't a reason to start a business. A lot of the challenges that people have, especially if you're looking to transition from going from a 9 to 5 to having your own business is, what is it that I want to do, right? So in that instance, what you find is that people may jump from one great idea to the next. Now, there are a lot of fantastic ideas out there, and in reality, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, and neither do you have to reinvent the wheel. In many instances, it could be, you could start a business with something that already exists. It's just that you're going to be doing it a bit better. You're going to be finding something in your everyday life that everyone is having a challenge with, and as such, if you just thought it through, then you can then create something new. And I give an example. I won't say the name of the brand, but I recall that there was, someone had a baby, and they noticed that when feeding the baby on the high chairs, the food was always the plate or the cup, that you put the food in, those little plastic cups were always falling down.
Yeah.
and I think the person thought of it that, okay, can we do something that would require suction to stay on? And that business, now this is not one of my clients, I'm just saying something from general information. So they then realized that if they tried creating a suction cup that would sit on the platform, so the baby couldn't lift it and throw it away.
But how does it drink?
No, it's not for drinking, for eating. So something you put
for the
food,
bowl
the bowl for the food.
Like, look,
Exactly.
you haven't spilt your drink now, but so you're a little bit thirsty.
So exactly. So what then happened is, my understanding is that that person then started to market that, and they went,
It was huge.
Yes, of course, a lot of other businesses then came and copied it. But
that's a whole different area, getting the patents and everything.
Exactly. So the key is that it doesn't necessarily have to be, reinventing the wheel. It is things in your everyday life that you can, think through and say, this doesn't exist. What can I do to make this happen? And voila, you may have an interesting business to bring to market.
I think one of the important things is being able to understand your customers aren't all going to be exactly the same as you. And I think a lot of the time you want to start a business that you would want to use, but are you typical of your market or are you not? Because, it might be really popular with half a dozen people that are very, very similar to you, but are there then loads and loads of people that maybe would prefer something slightly different?
Exactly. Part of putting your business plan together is doing a bit of market research for you to understand what the market size is and what segments you want to play within in that market. Last week, I think the last time we spoke, we discussed the different tiers, right? So you may want to cater for volume or slightly higher priced, high value, or very highly priced, high value, hopefully. So part of that aspect is also thinking through where you want to be, doing a bit of research, finding out what currently exists within the market, why yours will be different, why the people will come to you to buy from you instead of any other person. And it is always good while doing that to also look at the competition, find out what else is there, document who your key competitors are, what advantages you are bringing to market that is different from what your competition are bringing. And in documenting all of these things, you then start to form some sort of a strategic plan and to identify, okay, so this is my product, this is what I need to do from my product perspective to take me to the next level.
And so important to understand the pricing structure of the rest of the market, so you can see where you fit into that and whether you are going to be premium or budget or somewhere in the middle, and how do you compete with your competitors? And if they change their prices when you launch, how are you going to react to that?
It is quite important that while you are doing that market research, you go out and find out what the competition is doing. You may want to see what they're doing, how they're doing it. You could go into you can actually try to buy from your competition. That's always a good idea.
You might need a disguise.
Yeah.
Fake moustache and some glasses.
Walking. Try to buy from your competition. See how easy it is to go through those processes. Right?
I think sometimes people start a business because they've worked somewhere and left, and they actually have a very good idea of what their competitor is doing. But if you've used to work somewhere, you will get recognised. So you might need to send somebody undercover to do your reconnaissance.
To do a bit of that. So yes, there's a whole range of activities that need to come into play when you are first doing your initial research to come up with that product and finding out if that product is viable. So that's the first aspect. Right. You then have to, in looking at your business plan, then also come up with the plan on how you are going to acquire your clients. So once you've been able to establish, you've got the product, you kind of have an understanding of where you want to price yourself, what your competition is doing, what the advantages you're bringing to the market are, how you're going to be better than the client, how you're going to deliver better than them, and so on. It is then, okay, so where are you going to acquire those clients? And then we start talking about the marketing plan.
So that first section, how long should that be? What should it look like? Is it like blocks of text, or would you have some tables in there? Maybe a strengths and weaknesses analysis of your competitors?
It would be a range of things, whatever works for you. It could be, for some business plans, you may want to keep it, depending on the kind of person that you are, you may want to go through as much analysis as possible, or you want to keep it short and sweet, but having the key points in there so that you can then create some sort of action plans off of those points. And that is the key. If you are able to have those, as you mentioned, your SWOT analysis, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and putting that out and putting in bullet points against each of those to identify where you stand versus where your competition stands. Then that is always a good idea. So having a few pages and making sure that each of the different aspects that we've just spoken about has a few bullet points and some text, of course, to give it some context. Because what you also want to do is think through, when your business plan is ready, you should actually be able to give it to an accountability partner to read through and see that it actually makes sense. Now, this is, of course, when you're first starting out. If you're an established business, then there's usually protocols around these things.
Yeah, if you're an established business, there's going to be more historical data to inform the potential and the prospects going forward. So let's talk about section 2 of the business plan. So this is how you're going to get your customers, how you're going to acquire clients, the marketing side of running your business. What kind of things should you be thinking about?
Your marketing plan. So there are many ways that you can do this. You can decide, are you on a shoestring budget? In which case, you're going to do your own marketing yourself. Like we said the last time, entrepreneurs, especially when they're first starting, wear numerous hats with marketing and sales. Could be part of these.
Do you know what? I find that entrepreneurs, when they're running their own business and it's their money, especially when you first started, you find really clever ways of doing marketing. So when I was working somewhere else, we got a pavement cleaning machine and a stencil, and we cleaned our logo into the pavement all over the town. And that's it's not illegal, I think, because you're cleaning the pavement, but it did stay there for quite a while.
Oh wow, that's a very interesting one. I've not heard that one before.
They call that like guerrilla marketing. So it's kind of getting under the radar and doing crazy things. And obviously sometimes you can be a little bit cheeky with I'm not going to give examples, but there are things you can do that are in the sort of the grey area of legality, but it's best to try and keep things a bit more official, I think.
Yes, a bit more efficient. So there are numerous ways that you can do things. One of the biggest ways, especially when you first start, is via word of mouth. What you find is you're talking. First of all, you're starting with friends and family. This is mostly for the newbies, the startups. It is friends and family, speaking to friends and family, making sure that they understand what you're doing. They start to buy from you. But of course, you also want to make sure that even if your first clients are your friends and family, you want to give them the best service or the best product that you can, and then they start talking to their friends and family, and then you start to create some traction of your business going out even without you saying anything.
Do you think maybe talking to your friends and family should be something that you're doing during the first section to kind of establish the demand for what you're doing? Because if you talk to your friends and family and they don't want to buy whatever it is that you're selling, then that might be a red flag.
Well, it could be, but it also depends on what the product is, right? So friends and family, depending on what you're trying to sell. So if you're doing a tech, if you're a tech entrepreneur bringing some savvy CRM into the market, the likelihood is that friends and family.
Your mum might not be that interested.
So then you have to start talking to other smaller businesses, or the businesses that may, or the friend that you meet at the golf club.
Yeah,
because then so it's a bit of a.
Yeah. It's a bit like, Mum, you can organise all your knitting patterns with this CRM. It'll change your life. It's like, no, not really that fussed, darling. But good luck.
So there's it's a rock and a hard place, right? Because in some instances, so let's assume that you had a high flying friend who was the COO of an organization that you could sell your platform to, as an example. Now, you don't want to go to that friend when you don't already have your ducks in a row, because they don't have that sort of time, right? So you probably want to have it all developed, make sure that you've removed a lot of the glitches and so on and so forth before you take it to them and say, hey, guess what? We've established this. I want to give you a demo, and then you kind of go from there. So it depends on the product, the business, the level of entry that you're coming into, and so that determines a lot.
So what are some of the ways that you can market your business? You've got word of mouth, you've got like social media, I guess.
Yes, social media. So as social media has gone, it's got there are certain platforms that I'm not even on, because I think I've my age range doesn't help me very much. But there are so many platforms out there. My understanding is that with TikTok, there are businesses that have gone from relatively modest sales to astronomical sales, just from a bit of singing and dancing and showing off the product on TikTok. So you have to try to explore the different areas. You could use social media. It is very high up there now. Word of mouth, flyers, Google ads as an example.
Yeah, Google ads.
If you're willing to spend some money.
They often do an offer when you first start using Google ads where they give you £200 worth of advertising credits, but sometimes you have to spend £200 to get it.
Well, with many platforms or organizations that are trying to help you pay per click or whatever those things are called, they have to find a way to bring you in. So I think you could try with all of the non-paid ones first, before, as you become a bit more established and you have already started selling, then you can try all the different other alternatives as you go along. But from a planning perspective, it would be good to at least put down all of the different areas or strategies for your marketing that you're going to use, and establish and make sure that you go through each of them individually and try to tick those off. You would learn as you go along what makes sense, and that is always a good way to go.
And obviously within that, work out a budget for your marketing and spread it over a period of time. Don't just do all your marketing in the first month and then hope that it's just going to keep going.
Well, with the business plan, what we would do, for instance, at Trabalho, is after going through all of these different areas, so marketing, sales, how you're going to execute, and so on and so forth, we would then go through putting a forecast together. And that's where the numbers then come in. So that is one of the more important bits, but I think we'll leave that to the end. You do have to put a forecast together, and you try to forecast into the next 3 to 5 years, and that's where all the budgets and plans come through. But we'll get to that.
But I think with marketing, it's about finding ways to get the most bang for your buck. So a lot of the time, especially with local advertising, if you catch a person in the right way at the right time of the month, newspapers often have space that they need to fill just before they come out, that they offer at reduced prices. Same with magazines. Radio ads are often doing special discounts, and get to know the people that are selling the advertising, because they want to sell, so often there's some compromise available.
If you don't ask, you don't get. So it is always a good idea to speak to people. Once you know what your budget is, speak to people. As you've rightly said, that you would have your local magazines, you would have newspaper ads, your local radio. Like, for instance, now we're at Horizon Radio, so you can
Thanks for the plug.
Put in your local radio.
Another thing that's quite interesting, people don't realise you can put local adverts on TV channels. So when you're watching with the newer set-top boxes, they will insert adverts for local businesses, and it's like Google ads. You can pay for however many times you want your ad to be seen, and it can be quite affordable if you only want to reach a very particular location, and you can even target your ads by different demographics and interests and things, the same as you can do with social media ads. It's a bit mind-blowing when you think about all of the different options, but that's why sometimes it's good to have somebody to guide you through that process.
Yes, it is. Speaking to your accountant, your business advisor, coming up with all of these different areas, aspects, plans, you can map them out. You can then decide, as part of the planning process, when we reach this threshold, we would go on TV, as an example. And it is just having that plan and strategy from a marketing perspective that is important. It must be, I must mention now, there's a difference between marketing and sales, and sometimes people confuse the two. So marketing, in many instances, it takes a while, for things to start to manifest themselves from the marketing that you may have done. So it is important that from a marketing perspective that you're consistent. Don't go out, blowing, spending all the money in the bank on one campaign, expecting that if I spend, all of that money on the campaign, then suddenly I'm going to have a flurry of interest or sales. It may not work out that way. So it's better to have a plan. In many instances, say we're going to do 6 months, 1 year of a particular marketing strategy, and you watch it as you go along. And see as it then translates into sales, which is the key bit, the sales. We have to get into sales, and also you have to have a plan for those sales. How are you going to get that money coming into the business? How are you going to get the clients paying for the services or paying for the goods? That is also a key, and there's a lot that also needs to come through that. Now, there are a whole lot of, as an example, payment platforms that are now out there, right? So you can arrange with some of the payment platforms, put things on your website as an example, and you'll be able to collect money through the website. But all of these things have to be planned, because there are costs, there are operational issues, and so on and so forth that need to be managed for these to then all work out. So the sales, the kind of cards that you want to use. Notice, I love American Express, but not a lot of firms take American Express.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. We're not going to go into it today, but it is those sorts of things. So if you say, I'm going to have all the cards, I'm going to be able to accept all cards, it may not be feasible. There may be fees that you may, that may cut into your profitability. But in planning and doing the research, then you are in a better place to be able to take that forward.
So interesting. And I think also understanding whether you're B2B or B2C, because that affects the marketing and who your customers are, and the fact that a lot of the time you'll spend money to raise awareness of your brand but not necessarily generate direct sales. So there's a lot on the marketing and the sales side. So on to the next section, which is how you're going to actually do it. How are you going to execute your business? And that might seem like pretty obvious. You just do it. But there's a lot that comes under that, isn't there?
Yes, there is. So you're going to start a manufacturing firm, as an example. Where are you going to locate it? What are the facilities that are going to be required within that area? Right? We're speaking right now in Milton Keynes. As you can see, Milton Keynes, they've decided to build a whole range of depot style facilities. So a lot of people are coming in that area, distribution warehouses and the like. You have to then kind of think through the location. What is the cost of that location? Because as you can imagine, if you're going to set up in London versus if you're setting up in Manchester, there's a cost implication to it. What are the facilities that you would require? Are you going to be heavy on electricity, as an example? Are you going to be heavy on water? Does the local area have a sufficient of those resources for the business that you are looking to establish? Or as you're looking to develop, do you have those capabilities within your current location? So the location, the technology, the equipment, and how do you then keep the metrics to see that all of these aspects, you're meeting your targets based on the outlay that you have for all of the different aspects of the execution.
I think it's also about understanding what your priorities are, because it might be that the road and the rail infrastructure is really important to you to get your goods out there, in which case somewhere like Milton Keynes is ideal because you've got really good transport links, or you might be okay to compromise on that, save a little bit of money on your premises because you've got different kinds of customers, you're more of a service-based industry, and again, understanding where your customers are is a big part of that as well.
And that is why it is key that when you start to put a business plan together, you document these things. But it is not just about documenting them, it is also making sure that you can do the feasibility to see that it actually works out. And this is where, the question you asked earlier, should I use AI to write it? No, because it's just a document. If you went to a business advisor like Trabalho, what we would do is we will talk with you on all of these aspects and we will challenge you. Right? So you say, we're going to do it this way. There will be the challenge. What is the cost of, the freight? We once had a client who was going to be doing some international business, right? So they were going to be buying things, I believe, from China, importing into the UK, and then doing some additional inputs to it, and then exporting elsewhere. But when we start to ask the question, okay, so what about the freight? What sort of freight are you using? What are the costs of that freight? These are all of the things that you can, once you put them into the business plan, you also have to do the research to find out that it actually works and that the numbers make sense, and that because even if we start talking about freight, it's not just freight, it is insurance, it's the personnel, it is bringing the things in and out of so there's a whole range of aspects that you kind of need to cover once you're having those discussions, and that is why it is always best to speak to a business advisor.
And I think also the metrics. So how are you going to measure success? What are your KPIs? What are the stats that you need on your dashboard to know how your business is performing? And that should be in the business plan as well, shouldn't it?
Yes, it should be in the business plan. And there are a range of matrices that we would talk to you about depending on the business model that you have or the products that you have. And it is finding the key metrics and then finding what you determine as success, and then what your competition, what the industry actually determines as success. So what thresholds do you need to meet to be able to take the business forward? And in just measuring that, then you can, as you grow the business, as you develop, you keep an eye on those things to make sure that the business is going in the right direction.
So obviously money is going to be a big part of the business plan, and we've left that quite late on, but how are you going to finance your business is a question you've got to ask yourself, and you've got to be realistic about it, haven't you?
Yes, there are many, many different ways. Are you doing it on a shoestring budget? Are you speaking to friends and family? Friends and family keeps on coming up, so which is always a good thing.
The bank of mum and dad.
Bank of mum and dad. So are you going with friends and family? Are you bringing in investors? From an investor's perspective, you also then have to start thinking through the legalities of it. It's always good to get a lawyer. So these are things that, all of these things have to be in the business plan. And then, are you then also going to your local bank, as an example, or the smaller finance houses, if you are not established enough for your local bank to want to lend to you? So there's a range of areas. But the key bit is we start with those conversations. Since we have gone through all of these other areas, we will start to, as we go through all of the other areas, we start to establish the costs or the potential costs of all of those. One key area that I need to mention, and I'm taking us back a bit, is in the sales. Even within the sales, we also have to have come up with a plan for what you are going to sell and at what price, right? Across what period. So you do have to have a plan on the sales, because it is the sales, hopefully, that will start to fund all of these other areas, other than the injection of cash that you may need to bring in from financing.
Yeah, and also how much you're going to make on the stuff you're selling. So what's it cost, and then what's your profit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everything then starts to come together, right? And then I think this is where we now start talking about the forecast. So one of the more essential parts of the business plan is the forecasting. That's where the numbers come in. In many instances, that's where the accountant starts to shine, because we've been waiting for the numbers for a while. So what is a forecast? In essence, what you're doing is that you are projecting forward what you expect that you're going to have in revenue. Now, revenue is just the number of items that you've sold by the price, and that would be then be the revenue. So you have to project forward what you're going to sell, how you're going to sell them, when you're going to sell them. So in having a conversation with us at Trabalho, as an example, if you, I keep on jumping back to the restaurant because it's a good one. It has different aspects within it. So, as you know, in the summer, everyone is out in the restaurants. There's additional space on the outside. People can sit outside. There's more capacity, and the like. In the winter, however, there's it is seasonality. So it is not as, in many instances, not all, in many instances, it is not as robust. The sales are not as robust in the winter as they are in the summer. So you have to, in the planning, look through how you're going to manage that. And or it may be that you come up with strategies to be able to sell a bit more in the winter.
Or do something a bit different in the winter.
Exactly.
It's like Walls made sausages, and then they started selling ice cream in the summer because they weren't selling many sausages.
There we go.
There you go.
So yes, so it is coming up with that and thinking through, and then with us also having those conversations and saying, for a new business, what are you going to do? Are there any seasonalities? Do you need to put that into consideration? Using the aspect of your costs. So as an example, you intend to have permanent staff. Well, you're going to have to pay them in the period where you have a seasonal low, right? So how do you cover those wages? But it's having those conversations that is part of building the business plan and making sure that you thought through all of these different aspects, and then you can come up with a forecast that helps you plan, understand your numbers, and then can help you in coming up with strategy. Now, that's for the new firms. For the more established firms, it is, if you're coming up with new products or looking for ways to increase your sales or increase your profitability, it is then, doing similar across the board. So revenue, costs, personnel, expenses, assets. Do we need to invest in the company? Putting all of those into a forecast, looking ahead 3 to 5 years, and based on that, you can then decide, okay, well, maybe we should go in this direction or in the other direction. I'll give you one great example. This is one of the best examples that I've had in the past. It's not it doesn't end well, let me say, at the beginning. But for the client, it was their feedback to us was the best decision they ever made. And this is how it went. So we have a client who wanted to start a new business, and within that business, they were going to do create some products, and there was going to be some international trade with that product. They were doing their 9 to 5. They have a bit of experience with it, but they were doing their 9 to 5, but they didn't have the full front to back.
Yeah.
They came to us saying, this is what we wanted to do. We want you to help us with a business plan. It was a 3 to 5 month exercise. It actually took that long.
Wow.
But the key was it wasn't just writing a document. It was we were having those meetings to challenge the idea. So we then put together the business plan, looking at the sales, the revenue, how all of the different expenses, who they have to hire from a personnel perspective, at what point into the next 3 to 5 years, the amount of finance that they had, where they could get additional money from. By the time we were done, from all indications, the business plan showed that it wasn't viable.
Okay.
And they had spent a considerable amount doing this with us. But the more important bit was it wasn't just writing a business plan and fudging the numbers to make everything look good. We were being realistic.
Yeah.
What was the feedback that we had? The client was, this is the best thing that they have done. Why? Because if they hadn't put a business plan together, they would have started the process, and the business was going to require them using about £100,000 to get everything going. They would have spent that £100,000 and then found out that the business wasn't viable. Instead, they spent a few £1,000s and found out, and they were like, this is the best thing. We know we're not going in that direction. And so that was the negative, but also the positive. But then the great bit is that these are still my clients, but with other things. And, they are one of my, they are one of our biggest cheerleaders, and constantly saying, whatever you do, go and do a business plan first. I mean, they do have other things that have come through, starting from a business plan, that are very successful now. But, that was something that came out of it. And I think the point that I wanted to make there is that creating a business plan isn't just to make numbers up or make it look like something is viable when it may not be. So the idea is to do a good business plan. If the business is viable, then that is great, and you can see and you can plan and you can strategize, but it may also come back saying it's a no-go area.
Or that you need to adjust something to make it work. But that's the thing. It's about being honest with yourself, putting some accurate numbers in there, and not just wishful thinking, especially with the forecasting, because it's very easy to say, our sales will double every month for forever. It's just not realistic. And if you're honest with your business plan, that's your opportunity to see what's going to happen, because you can't turn the clock back once you're doing something. You don't have a time machine. The business plan gives you that insight into how things are going to go.
Yes, it does. And that is the key. So we've had many successful businesses who have come. We've gone through the business plans with them. They've gone from 5 figures to 6 figures, high 6 figures. We've had some who have come from 6 figures who have gone into 7 figures. Just by and these are relatively small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses. But the key is that from our perspective, they had enough knowledge to know that they couldn't do it themselves. They needed some help. They needed to be able to, have an accountability partner. And we, went through the business plan together, came up with some strategy, put some plans, and then they were able to execute based off of those plans. And today they are quite successful.
Amazing. Well, hopefully that's inspired everybody to get started, or just have another look at your business plan. If you've got halfway through, put it in a drawer and forgotten about it, dust it off, start at the beginning and have a listen back to the podcast and just write some notes, or better still, talk to you guys at Trabalho Accountants and get guided every step of the way through the process.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will see you on the next episode of Beyond the Numbers.
Great. Thank you.